Well, the exhibition came about as a result of me approaching John on the basis of photographs he'd taken from the year previously. I spoke to John about the prospect, and he indicated to me that there was an extraordinary new technology that was becoming available, and that it all could be shot in 3D, and that it would become, we talked about it in terms of what sort of an exhibition it could turn into and what sort of impact it would have, and very quickly I got to a point where we thought that we could create a time capsule of Australian urbanism, now looking at what had happened in Australian history up to this point, and when projecting it into the distant future. So urbanism, as far as I saw it, was the central issue of the century. The way we manage our city is going to determine our survival and the quality of life in the future.
I had the idea, having done a previous 3D stereo shoot in India, that it was going to be the future and that it would be good to demonstrate the increased ability of stereo photography to enable viewers to read an architectural or city piece of urban design much more rapidly. You can take data in quickly when you see it in 3D compared to 2D, and so I decided to then push the boundaries and shoot at night because it had never been done before, until I discovered that the whole system was impossible to do from the air unless I radically came up with a new system to get stereo. And that involved this process you're going to see tonight, which is to use a single camera to simulate left and right eyes by some very nifty pilot flying, where we can go from one spot to another spot in space exactly 66 feet apart and get two parallel pictures. We developed it from scratch. It's using the gyro was just a mechanical contrivance. Because the exposures are so long at night, we just needed to stabilise the camera. The system we developed, in fact, was to simply use one camera to get two left and right eye images. When you normally, stereo cameras have two lenses, we're using one camera. The crux of it relies on the fact that to get stereo separation when you're flying at 2,000 feet, you need the two cameras to be 66 feet apart, and that precluded getting a rig, which was the system I was experimenting with. No one had ever, and has never in the past, pulled off aerial shots of cities with a 66-foot wide camera separation, and that's what makes it so unique.
Well, Footslice is a company that's been in operation for about 5 years, and we do architectural illustration and animation and rendering of architectural buildings and concepts. Sam Slicer and myself have been working in the area for over 10 years. We're both architectural graduates, and we've both had a strong interest in architectural concept and ideas and the way it's applied into a 3D world. When the entries came in, there was 130 of them. We obviously went through them all, and we actually were pretty diligent running through them all and trying to find a sort of, initially trying to find themes, I guess, and trying to find concepts that would run together in some sort of sense of narrative, and found that pretty much that there was a lot of disparate responses, and given that it was a fairly concrete, I guess, a futurist theme, you might have thought that, you know, maybe it was going to be spaceships and moon landings, or maybe it was going to be that. But no, what we found, there was quite an esoteric sort of randomised feel to a lot of the work that was coming out. And part of the competition criteria was that they had to provide a 3D model. So that meant it had to have a 3D solidity, I guess, at least to some extent, a 3D component to the concept in the first place. So having taken that into account, if that's a criteria of selection or entry, then we understood that we had to think about, you know, how those geometries could be used as a narrative form, or as a connecting form. Given the abstract nature of much of it, that, you know, you basically have to read the words to know what they are, then really it was about form making to spark the reading, I guess, of the brochures and the catalogue and those sorts of things. I remember one interview, someone asking, don't you find this all very pessimistic? You know, most of those things are talking about solutions. So even, say for example, Saturation City, their concept was about a completely inundated Melbourne, and yet they were talking about preservation of, or heritage issues related to inundation. And I guess what we'd hoped to bring out of it was this much more of a sense of hope out of it, which is interesting. The desert example I give is called City of Hope. But the point I'm making is that I felt that it wasn't so much solutions, but it was an idea that these things can be a thing of beauty. You know? It also, given the fantastical nature of a lot of it, felt that for a non-architectural audience, they would also pull something out. Why are there jellyfish underwater? And why is the Melbourne underwater? Maybe that would then spark an interest in, I guess, urban concept with them as well. One person told me it was just a bit of a soundbite out of each project, and great, if all we've done is make people then take the soundbite and read more about it, then we've done our job.